there was a. I'm not gonna say it was heated because it was more so me dropping some harsh truths and realities to a group of people that want or a group of people that need to hear that stuff. And that was yesterday over on the News and Why It Matters. You can catch that if you want to actually see it. But I prefaced my before I went in on this, and we were talking about the whole policing element, military element, and their use for tyranny. And I remember bringing up, of course, our conversation with Benjamin Dichter, who was one of the original organizers of this sort of convoy, and how he was speaking as if this whole, well, we don't want to put law enforcement and all of them in a harsh like situation, or rather a tough situation is but I believe he said. And I know Sarah could see me kind of going like this and cringing because I was like, dude, you have to understand that what you're doing is inevitably going to come into conflict with them. But in order to game plan for that, you have to acknowledge the reality. And what I talked about was how Canada conservatives, despite them being further to the left than, let's say, the American conservative, their approach to police and military is largely the same on average, okay? And a lot of them have this naive, I think is the proper term. It's less stupidity. It's more not just being straight naive about police and military, because they like to think, maybe it's because it's convenient, that the police are on their side. Therefore, they excuse them when they're in error, which is more often than they like to think. Because an uncomfortable truth would be the agency that you back endlessly is the agency that will bust you upside your fucking head in the event their handlers told them to do it. And that is a reality that Americans need to wake up to as well. American conservatives need to wake up to as well. I think some of it has to do with their political enemies or adversaries have taken the opposite position. But as I mentioned on yesterday's show, dude, don't allow the contrarianism of, okay, well, because the left took this position, I had to take the complete opposite position. Have you taken the wrongful position? Yes, I'll admit wholeheartedly, a lot of, let's say, the modern left's gripe about police is based in retardation. I will concede that because it is 100% truth. And you don't have to ally with them on this effort at all. I've said this before about libertarians in the left. I was like, dude, we don't have to ally ourselves with people that would never defend us just because they say, oh, well, fuck the police or some shit. Like, no, fuck them. But you're under a spell, man, if you don't think that hell, even if it happened here, hell, we've seen it. You saw it in the Summer of Love in 2020. If it came down to it, you know who they're answering to. And the reason why it doesn't really get addressed, the problem is because you excuse it. You say things like, well, they're just doing their jobs, or they're just trying to support their families and all this other shit. And it's like, well, everybody else is too. What about them? And why on earth do they take fucking precedent? Two things cannot be true. You cannot sit up here and say that, well, they're there to preserve or protect you, or in America's case, they say the Constitution, my Constitution. And then on the other side, when they do some, let's say, be it mayor, federal officers, whoever it is, have commanded them to do something moronic and they do it, then you say, well, they're just doing the job. Okay, which one is it? Both of those statements can't be true. They cannot be serving and protecting you while also just following orders. Are they puppets or are they not? Now, I would argue, yeah, they are. And I would argue if it came down to it, a lot of these guys will bust their own neighbors upside the head if that's what their masters, again, told them to do. Because ultimately, I think it's more about saving their own bacon than them. Now, people will say it's different among, okay, you got big city police, local sheriffs and all that. And yeah, there's some slight differences between them. But I'm just talking about your run-of-the-mill police officers. They're not there to serve and protect you. I mean, hell, you see that with all the gun laws they enforce. Oh man, so many people in jail for nonsense of illegal possession, which is a nonsensical thing. But hey, Matue and all of these things. But the reason why I would drop that harsh reality on you guys, you can see I kind of blew up, and it was a passionate speech because it needed to be. Because I think there's an audience of conservatives that are very ripe for the idea of liberty, but they're under a moronic impression, and what gets in the way of them actually making strides towards moving to a more freer and more prosperous society kind of rests upon them taking positions that are antithetical to liberty. Despite them being as ripe, yeah, I can utter the terms capitalism, and your general conservative wouldn't like fall out and faint on the couch like your general leftist would. But still, there's a lot that they have to accept and acknowledge if we're going to move towards a more free or more prosperous society and nation or whatever it is that you want to call it. You have to come to terms with, and this is why so many guys on our side want to, rid them not just of their power, but empower the people to put like concepts of defense, which I don't know why people are under this impression that that's what the police does. They don't do that. They are a response agency at best. They think that, well, they're there to protect you and all that. I'm like, most of you guys will never need to call the police. Or generally when you do, like a lot of us that are armed, we have to call the police because if we just went on about our business after neutralizing a threat or something, then we would be therefore the criminals. Hell, I was just reading a story the other day where the cops arrested someone and they're about to be charged with murder because they killed someone about to rob them. Hey, the cops were complicit certainly in that. And with Canada, though, and what happened and what you saw to that, and is, we had interviewed one of the reporters who had been hit with like some, let's just say there was some acts of aggression by way of the police that were out there. Ottawa then turns around and the Ottawa police, they're sitting there saying that, yeah, this isn't enough. We're going to find and identify all of these people who are participating in this illegal occupation, as they call it, and they're going to be punished criminally. They just flat out said that. The folks that Benjamin Dichter, again, we had a conversation with them, was all like, yeah, we don't want to put them in a difficult position. Just flat out said, we going to fuck you up. Okay? That's what they said. Not me. I didn't say it. And I believe there was also this emergency use deal that went on their vote the other day. And if I'm not mistaken, yesterday, and of course it passed. And they always preface it by saying this is within the best interest of the people. And it goes to show two things out of all this. One, again, one side has a moronic belief about the police. Because if they were who you thought they were, if there's anybody they'd be arresting, it'd be Justin Trudeau. And on the other side, you have just people that still think democracy is a good thing. As if it's not just tyranny by way of the majority, even if those people that you put in those positions you got to vote for also by way of a majority is not equal to freedom. It never has been. It's antithetical to freedom. The fact that so much stuff is put to a vote and then you're overruled and the acts of aggression are put upon you. I'm not saying this is a doom and gloom kind of situation. More so what I'm saying is I want people to acknowledge the reality, because only then can you come up with a legitimate solution. I think the police aspect needs to stop being protected by this, because you're really the only side that does that, conservatives. Protect them like that, because, again, often it's at a response, because nothing you do is actually on your own will. It's always in response to what the left does. So they have fucking conjured you in or tricked you into taking a position that's antithetical to your own even goals. Again, you're under a moronic impression if you don't think police would do that shit. If the state said, hey, these are our rules, and this case, remember, it always comes back to, and this whole deal got started because of the acts of aggression. Sorry about that. That's my Twitch notifications going off. But this all started with the acts of aggression by way of the state wanting to, or coercing people into getting injected with something that they didn't want to get. So the act is initiatory by way of them. And you have the other folks, which was the truckers, were responding to this directly, saying, we got to do something that's in our power to try to stop this. And the people that you thought were serving and protecting you were the folks that were sent out there. And you got everybody wants to conjure up their conspiracy theories because they just cannot believe that the police would drag your bitch ass up out of the trucks. So, oh, well, there were some planes with some UN officers and all this. It wasn't really shut the fuck up, man. We already saw folks with boots on the ground, man. We know the fucking police were in them. Had an Ottawa police are sitting there having press conferences telling you what they gonna do. Stop it. Stop being under this delusion that they wouldn't do it when they continue to do the shit. So often we hear, oh, well, there's these people that are within the police force. They agree with us. They're really standing hand in hand with us on this issue. And then they go silent. Maybe it's because they were never on your side. Whatever optics, I guess, looks good for them, they'll entertain it. Their unions will entertain it. But ultimately, they don't give a shit about you. You don't pay them. You know? I want you to work towards a solution in this regards. And in order to, and this is about liberty ultimately, is what all this is about. But if you can acknowledge, historically speaking, it's always been this. It's always going to be the police and the military. The same folks you worship are going to be the people that the elites send on you in the event that they want to enforce something. It ain't going to be, what you think, Justin Trudeau is going to get out there on the streets and drag you out? No. And yet we accept, or y'all accept, this cycle of bullshit where it's like, well, they can't do anything. It's just their jobs. And it's like, if they were who you thought they were, it requires nothing of them. And maybe it is a sacrifice and from a paycheck standpoint, but to do nothing, it's not required much. It doesn't require much of them. Let's say that, to just sit up there and say, you know what? I am not going to enforce these nonsensical rules. But they continue, and time again, you get more and more examples of them doing it. And still you have folks coming out of this with the delusion that they are on your side. I'd encourage you to reconsider, is the point that I want to make, and that's what Canada teaches us. Reconsider.
You just listened to a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake, which is live throughout the week at 12 p.m. Central on youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. Be sure to check out my website, ericdjuly.com, so you can stay up to date with everything it is that I'm doing. You can also become a member and get access to a bunch of cool perks and exclusive content, which includes a social media hub where you can interact with myself and other members. It even has an app that you can get, which is now live in the Google and Apple stores.